Senator Guru,
Here.
Senator Rothfeld.
Here.
Excuse me, Rothfuss. Senator Hicks,
Excused.
excused. Senator Kinski,
Here.
President Driscoll.
Here. We have a quorum. Senator Rothfuss, do you like to walk us through the revisor's bill or do the order slow?
I would not, but I bet LSO would.
All right.
Perfect.
We'll turn her loose.
Mr. Chairman, Senators Katie Adams, LSO. This is Senate File 83, Reviser's Bill. I'll walk through this pretty fast. On page 2, line 6, the word ensure with an I is replaced with the word ensure with an E. On page 4, line 8, the name of the account that's referenced in paragraph 1 is amended by replacing the word project with the word projects. On page 4, line 20, the word statues is replaced with the word statutes. On page 5, line 13, the formatting of a statute number is corrected. On page 6, lines 2 and 5, the spelling of the word sulfur is corrected to align with the spelling in other statutes. On page 6, line 17, the word commissioners is replaced with the word commissions. Based on context, subsection C should refer to the commission's order rather than the commissioner's order. There are no changes on pages 7 and 8. On page 9, there's one more correction of the spelling of the word sulfur, and the act would be effective July 1st, 2024.
Mr. President,
Senator Rothfuss.
I would just note that I prefer the English spelling of sulfur to the American English spelling of sulfur, but I have no further objection.
Is there anything else we want to add to this list? Senator Rothfuss. Look over it, because this is the one chance we've got to add something to the list. So,
You mean
to the definitions list. So the definitions actually insert your foot into other areas for, I'm guessing, royalty and other things.
Gotcha, Mr. Chairman,
So
but
I'm wondering
if
if-
we did that, it would fall outside the reviser's bill, though. We wouldn't be able to use it as a reviser.
Oh, I think it does. It's definitions. Once you put the definition in, then it tracks through. It'd be another of the others. Is that correct? That's the way I would read it.
What are you talking about?
We're talking about the definitions on page 8 and 9. It's in the,
But, Mr. Chairman, if we change anything, it doesn't fall under the title of technical corrections. It's a change in,
all right,
yeah.
you win.
Mr. Chairman, the reviser's bill is
Yeah.
just for inadvertent errors.
Yep, got it. All right, any questions? Anybody from the public? None? Any amendments or anything else? No, we're good. Motion? Move the bill. Bill's been moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Senator Guru,
Aye.
Senator Rothfuss,
Aye.
Senator Hicks,
Excused. We'll leave the vote open for him.
okay. Senator Kinski,
Aye.
Chairman Driscoll.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, there are 4 ayes and 1 excuse.
Okay. Senator Kinski, do you want to go ahead and go into the next items, or do you want to wait for Senator Hicks? We've got committee membership rule and a couple rules, and Senator Hicks is involved fairly deeply in both of them. I'm somewhat loath to bring them up.
If you want to wait with those, I've got a couple others under the list of other topics.
Yes, it's Larry Bill, it's Larry's rule change.
That's where I was at. I can't really bring his rule change, and it affects where I'm at dramatically. So
And then, so if we don't do it now.
we'll renotice another
we'll have
meeting.
Senator, okay, so we'll just renotice because Senator Barno will jump up and raise the question about a reaction of the Agriculture Committee again.
We almost need to wait till 10 to see if he can get here on the Ag Committee when we promised the floor we'd try to bring that part of it up.
Yeah, I think we have to resolve that latter one. I think that rule one at the top.
In the Ag Committee, we could probably bring up, correct?
Yeah,
We can leave a vote open for Larry if he
Sure.
wants. Is that all right?
That's not about him, but the first one is his.
Senator Barlow's not here. I wish he
What
was.
was our resolution on ag? We said we're just gonna let everything go along like it's hunky-dory
Until this meeting.
That's why this is a hard stop
Yeah.
on this meeting, because that was, what we said was we'd acknowledge every vote that'd been made that was not big enough to change it, which was all of them, I believe.
I'll text Barlow and maybe we start talking about our schedule for
Matt
budget.
has some suggestions.
I spoke with Senator Barlow this morning, and he didn't call for this meeting. He didn't ask for this. It's not, he's not going to be here. He was not intending to be
Okay.
here.
If that's the case, I would suggest Senator Hicks may go on for a while. I would suggest that we lay the rest of these back and schedule another meeting. We're about to get slower as we get through the budget.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we can just talk about the Senate Ag membership, and maybe this group can come to a consensus on if there's anything to be done with that at all
Perfect.
at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the Senate Ag issue, I mean, my view according to the rules is that there are only two compositions of the Ag Committee that are in order. One of them is 5 members, the other is 9 members. And I don't have the rules right in front of me, but the rules basically state that it shall be 5, and then we put in the additional provision that pursuant to, I believe it's 17(1), if the House doesn't conform to our decisions on membership, which the House did not conform to our decision on membership. It's if the joint rules of the House and Senate do not conform to the voting requirements of Senate Rule 17(1), glad to see my memory works, the presiding officer may appoint a like number of members to any standing committee as appointed to the committee's counterpart in the House of Representatives. So A says shall have 5 members, and then the C is the only possible exception. So we're in a situation where 6 is clearly out of order, and there are 2 options available to us, as I understand it.
Director Albrecht, you want to opine? Is that the way you read it?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I guess I would just back up and say, on February 28th last year, you announced to the House that you were appointing Senator Larson to the Ag, or to the Senate, that you were appointing Senator Larson to the Ag Committee. And that was going to make 6 members on that committee. The Senate was presented with that. No vote was taken, no objection was made to your motion at that time. So really, I think it's for the Senate to decide through a motion, one way or the other, whether they want to reduce that number to 5 or to increase it to 9. You have the authority to appoint. Rule 2-7 in the Senate says there will be 5 members on every committee unless the House has a rule similar to 17-1. They don't, then it says, you can appoint a like number. What that means, I don't know. That's never been determined by either the Senate or the House, as far as I know. You appointed 1 more member. It's really for the Senate to decide what they want to do with that additional member.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Kinski, Vice President
you
Kinski.
said up to 9. Did you mean up to 6 committee members?
9.
9.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think up to 9, because a like number
I see.
of
Okay.
House members. And I guess I would just say that, as far as I can tell from the rules and manual legislative procedure in Masons, your vote in either the Senate Ag Committee or the Joint Appropriate, or the Joint Interim Committee, those are really just recommendations to the full Senate. And the Senate then ratifies that action through its either acceptance of that recommendation or its rejection of it. And the membership on that, I really think.
We didn't do a vote, but they basically ratified it by not objecting.
Well, you're right. Mr. Chairman, when you appointed Senator Larson, there was no objection made. But what I meant was through any recommendation on a bill that comes out of the standing committee. I can't see anything in your rules or in Mason's that invalidates those actions of the Senate Ag Committee, just because there's 6 members on that committee.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Drew.
I guess Matt, I understand that and I track that. And the actions the committee took were proper because the president appointed, no one objected until Senator Barlow. And then he brought an inquiry. And then a question was, were the actions of the committee legal?
And then Senator Steinmetz enshrined it. When she stood up and read her, and kind of enshrined to me that it was more of a formal complaint the way she treated it, is the way I took it.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I think we need to be real clear on what was discussed on the Senate floor. My understanding is Senator Barlow didn't make an objection to 6 members being on the Ag Committee. He only got up and stated that because there are 6 members on that committee, he was going to vote no on the bills. But he didn't make a formal objection to 6 members being on that committee. And I don't believe Senator Steinmetz, when she got up and discussed it, put the issue before the Senate. It was more of a privilege of, hey, here's why 6 members on the Senate Ag Committee is appropriate. So I don't think anyone's objected on the floor of the Senate officially to 6 members being on the committee.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I do think, though, that Senator Barlow has the expectation that we resolve it. I don't think he objected, but I think he didn't object because he didn't want to break the process at that moment, but has the expectation that we solve it. And I think that's our
And Mr.
responsibility
Chairman,
to do.
and that's how, I use the word, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I use the word inquiry purposely, because I didn't hear him object either. What I heard him say is, I don't know if this is right or not. I don't know if this is, and it was more of an inquiry than a complaint. And the same thing with Senator Steinmetz. I just heard her say that what she felt what was happening was proper.
So,
And I don't think anyone was saying it wasn't. It was just asking.
Senator Kinski.
so, Mr. Matt, would it be in order to say, go back to the floor with a resolution that says effective as of February 28th, retroactive that date, we approve a 9-member Ag Committee and then we ratify the actions of the appointment of that 6th member as of February 28th?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, Senator, you could certainly do that. I mean, this Rules Committee could find that action of the president appointing the 6th member was appropriate under your rules and precedents of the Senate, or you could find it wasn't. And you could make that recommendation to the full Senate. But I guess what I'm telling you is that no action will be taken to remove or change the membership on the Senate committee without a motion being presented to the full Senate to do so, and a vote by the Senate.
Follow up. So I'm asking for a fix-it. If we're sitting here kind of spinning, why don't we just endorse having a 9-member committee and then that resolves it?
Well, I guess, Mr. Chairman, if you're going to endorse having a 9-member committee, you need to appoint 3 more members.
Welcome to that.
Oh, you have to have,
Mr.
Yeah.
you have to have 3 more.
Well, I mean, that's one reading of,
That's my reading of it. You
Senate
wrote,
Rule
you wrote
2-7.
this, didn't you? I mean, you literally wrote this, so that's what I think you meant. Although you meant.
Well, we can
7
have
and 7.
honorary members.
We used to have
Well,
alternates.
so, Mr. Chairman, so what else what other path do we have?
Kick the can down the road, say we're not taking action unless someone files a complaint.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, this group could essentially just say the Senate was presented with the appointment of Senator Larson on February 28th, 2023. No objection was made on the floor of the Senate to that appointment. The Rules Committee feels like it's up to the full Senate to decide this issue then, since it was appointed to them. And just leave it for the full Senate to decide whether it was appropriate. Or you could say it is appropriate, the appointment of Senator Larson under Senate Rule 2-7 through A3, or you could say it wasn't appropriate.
Okay, Mr. President, so we say, we get up and read that. The Rules Committee has determined that it's up to the Senate to determine whether the appointment was appropriate or not. Is there a motion that follows on with that, or we just do nothing, and if nobody does anything, we're golden?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's right. Yeah, it's then up for a member of the Senate to object.
No objection, we just go on unless the House objects.
You bet.
And they won't. I visited the Speaker, the House has no objection to be 6 and 5, or 6 and 9.
I mean, the president is the appointing authority for committee members. So,
Sometimes.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator.
I don't have a problem with anything that's been said, except one thing. And this just comes from recent past. I have a real concern about having a 6-member committee. That could be problematic down the road, problematic for the committee, for the chairman. It could throw it, like, depending on the makeup, depending on the issue, depending on whatever, you end up in a tie, and all of a sudden now you've got, it's just, you could be setting up an advantage or a disadvantage, I guess, either way you go. I guess maybe not, but it seems like to me, just in the normal course of committee work, it sounds like to me like it's problematic to have 6 members, I guess. And I'll hear what you guys have to say.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I guess the consideration here is, do we want to set any sort of a precedent or a tradition where obviously that matters in the legislature? If you've done it before and it hasn't been challenged, then it's okay. And this basically is a situation where we have 6 members on a 5-member committee. And if it's okay now, it's okay.
Oh, you've set a precedent.
Yeah. I don't think it is okay, candidly. I think these are 5-member committees. I didn't vote for the 27-C that would allow for a 9-member committee because I didn't think that was a good idea at the time. The idea that we are flexible on committee membership seems a little antithetical to a lot of the core rules, and the impetus for 27C was fighting cram down in the House on the Appropriations Committee. That was the only reason it existed. So I certainly agree with the fact that we can go back in there and leave things alone and just say, unless somebody objects, everything's fine, but I don't know that that's in the best interest of the Senate. I do fully agree, though, that past actions are all fine. I don't think there's any problem with any past actions. And I wouldn't want to call any of that into question. But moving forward, giving an opportunity for the Senate to vote to endorse a 6-member committee or a 5-member committee, I think having that vote would be useful, which would take a motion.
Hey, Rod, yeah, we almost have to. Without doing it, we've tactically broken the rules and allowed it, which is, we've seen what the results of those potentially are. And that's a tough precedent to get into. That's part of what we're doing here is trying to sharpen rules, and now we're saying, let's not sharpen the rules, let's just go ahead and not.
Right. Well, I guess that's a question. If there is an objection and one of us can bring the objection, the Rules Committee can bring the objection. That can be a motion from the Rules Committee. We can say, we object to this, and that then puts the motion that Director Obrecht is talking about to the body, and they can sustain the objection or they can reject the objection, and that's over. I think that's a reasonable approach that, and again, moving from this point forward.
Mr. President,
Mr. Vice President.
I'm afraid that it get a bit confusing. So I like Matt's approach that you say that this appointment was as of the 28th. There was no objection at the time. The Rules Committee feels, barring any objection, that things are fine. Hearing no objection, he moves on. If somebody gets up and objects, you have a vote as to whether the objection is sustained or not.
Yeah, I just don't think that's the everything's fine part is true, because I think it's bad for the Senate. So I wouldn't support that motion as something that we bring back to the chamber as a resolution of the Rules Committee.
Bring a motion.
But I'm still interested in discussing if that's the interest. I think that I guess the challenge there, and maybe this is the right way to do it, maybe someone does bring a motion and then it has to go to the Rules Committee, ironically, at that point, to resolve the motion and make a recommendation back. Or do you think, Director, that the motion can be brought as a finding of the Rules Committee as a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I think that, if somebody brought a motion, it would be an appeal of the decision of the president. So it wouldn't need to go to Rules Committee, it'd go right to the floor. Now, Rules Committee could bring a recommendation and make that a motion too, from the Rules Committee, if that's what the will of the Rules Committee is.
I think that's what we should do.
Okay.
So, I mean, that would, go ahead.
No, I disagree. I think, I like and I know you say it's not fine, but I think Ogden gets up and says, we've met, vice staff, I made the appointment the 28th, absent any objection, the appointment stands and the actions of the committee stand. Pause, no objection, go back to work. Somebody's got to stand up and make an objection. That's what he said. Somebody has to appeal the motion of the decision of the chair. It didn't happen on February 28th, and if it doesn't happen today, contrary to what you say, I think we're fine.
Yeah, again, though, I mean, I would not support that, therefore I would make that objection. So what are we then going to do from there?
Also, you would object on the floor, and then we can vote and we resolve it.
So you don't want any recommendation from this committee? Okay, well, and I appreciate that, but I guess it seems to me that the legislature actually looked to us to look into this as opposed to just pawn it off on them.
No, the recommendation of the committee is that the decision was made on the 28th, there was no objection voiced at that time, and absent any objection, the appointment of a sixth member stands. I don't know how you would word that. Absent any objection, pause. You get up and object, we just vote. Nobody objects, we move on. I think that's what you're saying, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but I mean, the question is what the four of you want to agree to right now, if anything.
That is
Yeah.
certainly an option we could agree to. That could be the conclusion and the recommendation of this Rules Committee. It seems to me that it would be appropriate for this Rules Committee to actually rule on whether it's appropriate to have 6 members on a committee, since that's what we were asked to do. We can dodge that. I don't think that's our role. And I think that the finding of the Rules Committee should be there's an inappropriate number of
So,
members.
Senator Rutherford, yeah, as you can tell, I'm fairly laid back on this because I'm conflicted somewhat within it. But I will agree fully with you. I think that this committee should rule that at least going forward, this should not happen. I clearly can opine on that and fall into it. As far as the other part of it, you're going to find me strangely silent. I probably am going to vote, but I'm not going to enter in because I've already made my action. I mean, I've got caught in this crunch once already, and I really don't feel like stepping back out into it again very much, to be honest with you. It's
If we had a ruling that was basically what Matt said, but with findings that this is out of order, and then we don't even necessarily have to bring the motion ourselves, we can say absent objection, or this is how it's going to go. I think it's important, though, that we find it to be out of order, even if we don't change anything. That's the key
I
underlying
think it's clearly out of order.
concept.
Well, we go do just the way we just laid it out. How long do you think it would be at the next break, before 3 people walked into your office and say, Mr. President, I'd like to be on the committee. I'd like to be on the committee. And then all of a sudden you'd have 5, 6 member committees by 4 o'clock that afternoon. And I know that's just crazy talking. It would never happen in a million years, but I got $100 that says it would.
We get some more money in the feed
Well-
bill still?
Yeah.
Mr. President, I'd just like to get something on the table that we can take a look at. We're not going to be able to resolve it this morning, but I would move that Matt draft a finding by the Rules Committee that the president made an appointment of a sixth member to the Ag Committee. We can say it's in violation of the rules or not. If that's important to you, we can say it was in violation of the rules. Announce the appointment. There was no objection to the determination of the chair at that time. And it's the determination of the Rules Committee that absent objection, the determination of the president stands. I think that's what you're saying. And then if you want to get up and object, we just vote on whether we sustain the sixth member or not.
I think it's essential that we note that it's a violation of the rules, otherwise it becomes a precedent.
So if you could note that it was a violation of the rules, then maybe we can get something done here. So we'll just see what he drafts. He's a heck of a wordsmith. He'll delegate it to Ian. Ian does Matt's best work.
So what happens if somebody objects? And again, they can call for the Rules Committee on the objection. They can go to the floor, but they could ask the Rules Committee for a recommendation. Is that not accurate?
I think you ruled on it, right?
Okay.
No, I mean, that's the whole point, right? And I appreciate your input, but realistically, steering this direction is a concern because the reality is it's up to the Rules Committee to make this decision. And what we're trying to do, what this motion does is say we want to dodge the decision, take a dodge back to the chamber, and then not offer an opinion. And I'm
Mr.
concerned
President,
about that.
Mr. President, I'm going to address through the chair. That's not what I proposed. I asked that he specifically say that he made a sixth appointment in violation of the rules, as you would like. And it's our determination that there having been no objection lodged at the time, that the ruling stands absent any objection now. That's our determination. I don't understand how that's different from what you're asking.
Well, we'll see how it's written up. Because again, I think that the Rules Committee stating whether it is or isn't appropriate is definitive. And saying absent objection is basically saying we don't want to deal with it. And you can do that. And that can certainly be a reasonable position taken by this committee, but the idea that it's the only one for us to consider and that we're obligated to, I don't think is appropriate.
Mr. President, well, we'll at least have something on paper. It's not a dodge. I think we're dealing with it. We're following the rules. He can get up and say anything he wants, and somebody stands up and says, I object, under the rules, and then it's game on after that. That's the rules. I don't think we're dodging anything, Chris. I don't see where we're dodging anything.
Okay. Well, let's see how it's written up.
We'll look at the letter. I think we're in an impasse here pretty much. We'll take a look at Director Olbrecht's letter. I think we'll distribute it to the entire committee, Director Olbrecht, and then we'll put our heads together if we want to do it. I think we're going to end up with another meeting regardless. We can go to the floor and said we kind of dealt on it, we're working on a letter, but I think probably either on Friday or early next week, we need to deal with this other one, and I've got a couple other issues that we're going to bring up today. First one is mics in the gallery. We've got some recording things going on. I'll opine on it and then I'll let the committee go. I personally think we've got all kinds of great recording devices, just like we're looking at here. Anybody that really wants to look at testimony and what happens on the floor, we've got a great means that goes out online. It's all archived. We can get to it. I personally like to see a policy that says no recording devices other than a cell phone. You know, if you want to have a handheld cell phone to take a picture with or do whatever, but no mics, no professional recording equipment, and no cameras, because it really does catch pretty well where we're at. And if you want to step up with a cell phone and do it, I don't have a problem with it, but it's pretty evident that we're entering into an era of fairly sophisticated equipment on the floor. And I think it was clear, could be debated by who it was, and we're not naming anybody, but I think it was pretty clear they weren't trying to pick up testimony, they were trying to pick up private conversations on the floor. And for our members that don't have an office, that's the only place they have to have a conversation, I think we have an expectation of privacy for private conversations on the floor. And I'll leave that to the debate.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Drew.
The rules were written at a time when we didn't have recording devices, when we didn't have cameras, when you couldn't just parse out, you can take it down to each item that comes up on the floor and people can pull that out. And staff is really great about, I know people send me stuff all the time that I said, or other people said that they archive it at 1 minute, 48 seconds. So they could, and people can chop, parse, and do anything they want with those recordings. But, and I totally agree with you, as the only person in this committee right now who does not have an office. My office is my desk. That's all I got. And right now, with what's going on right now, when I want to have a private conversation, I have to leave the floor. And a lot of other members feel the same way. And I think that actually has the exact opposite effect of what these people are looking for, because the more people do that, start recording things on the floor, especially personal conversations, and then put them out online. The minute the gavel goes down, very soon, everyone will be rushing off the floor because no one is going to want to talk on the floor because they're going to be picked up by a microphone. Then the conversations are all out in the hallway. Then all of a sudden, you're actually going to achieve the same, we're trying to make this open and transparent. What you're going to achieve afterwards is the exact opposite. And so I think we have to nip it. I think we have to do it right now. I think it's for the members, it could be potentially embarrassing. I think it's literally a ticking time bomb right now. Someone gets on the phone, everyone's out of the room, everyone's gone at lunchtime. You're sitting there, your wife calls, your husband calls, and you have a tough conversation in the moment. All of a sudden, that's picked up on a boom microphone and played out in cyberspace. And it's like, I fear for the members because I don't think they really adequately see the danger or the risk that they're taking by even talking on the floor right now.
I agree, and we've seen those open mics over and over again. Senator.
So I'm missing a piece. Are we talking like an extreme remember all the old hyperbolic mics, but they were like this big? Or do they have
We
something
had
like
one
that
up there,
now?
the size of a pop can.
Yeah, it's directional. So
Directional
that's
size
also
of
the balcony.
It can pick up you muttering to yourself.
Yeah,
You can pick up a conversation probably
Mr.
at that
Chairman,
door.
Mr. Chairman, it's right over your desk. I mean, hanging right over your desk.
That's
That's
where
why you don't
it's
see it. It's right above you. So any conversation that you may be having with anyone has been picked up by the person who has that microphone. Any
All your back row
conversations you've had
conversations.
I
in
don't
the
know.
last
I might want one.
Well, and there you go.
Well, I learned to be careful because Hicks is deaf, I'm deaf. Sherry has wonderful grandmother hearing. 2 years ago, we were talking to whispering to each other, and she turns around, she goes, "Oh, that's interesting." So I have to step off the floor.
Well, it's wise for anybody. I can tell you, these open mic moments, we've had numerous of them. Being president, I can tell you, it's amazing how many people jump up and down and point at their mics. Nethercott was doing it yesterday because
The mic's still-
whatever conversation, you lean over and you say, "Did you hear about
Yeah.
old Joe?" And all of a sudden, it's on live feed now.
So,
But this is doing it without any knowledge.
and so let me ask you this, does it impact it if somebody's got a hyperbolic mic and then they have a badge that says media?
Yes,
Does that change it?
does not to me.
I don't think it does.
That's up to us, but my belief is, no, they shouldn't be recording private conversations. See, I really believe, and it goes back to Senator Greer, I've been there and I'm gonna go back there next year. Your office is your desk on the floor, so you lean over and you visit with your desk mate, people come to your desk to visit, and you really ought to have some expectation of privacy, is my belief, on that floor, is the public part of the debate is absolutely public domain.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mesfis.
Matt, have other legislative bodies dealt with this, do you know?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, yeah, you bet. I mean, and you've dealt with it in the past, the Wyoming legislature. We've got a management council policy on what's appropriate behavior in the gallery. And the presiding officers have an immense amount of authority to decide what's appropriate behavior in the gallery. If you're finding a certain behavior to be disruptive on the floor, you're completely within your authority to have that behavior stopped. I would say this, though, as just a caution, there is some First Amendment rights attached here, too. So it would probably be best if it was dealt with at the presiding officer level and rather than through some action of the body.
Thank you. With that being said, I'll put the committee on notice because I will do it. And
Yeah.
it'll probably be one more time that I do a ruling from the floor that somebody can talk about, but I probably am going to state just what I just did.
I think getting that written up basically is something along the lines of, you know, I find that this is disruptive to the operation of the Senate and we have an official record available of all of the official actions of the legislature and you know, at this point, we will
Not allowed.
not allow any recording devices. Now, here's the challenge. We really don't care if somebody's using their cell phone and taking a picture.
Do not.
No,
And that's a hard little nuance, but
Mr. President, is the demarcation point, anything that's picked up by the public audio system of the legislature is fair game?
Yes,
Any device that's
absolutely.
intended to pick up something that's not.
right, trying to pick up, exactly, yeah, that's fair. Trying to pick up anything that's designed to pick up private conversations, basically.
And Mr. Chairman and committee, I mean, this is just an area where things need to be thought out.
Yeah.
tread lightly. And I'll just give you a case in point. When we planned this building, there was no plan to broadcast through the legislature, the proceedings of the House or the Senate. That was absolutely a COVID necessitated action on our part. So it's ad hoc. Our video quality is what it is. It's not incredibly great. And the cameras aren't always on the person who's speaking. We've got a long tradition in the Wyoming legislature of allowing media to film from the gallery. So what I'm saying is whatever determination is made needs to take all of that into consideration.
Yeah, that's fair.
Director Albrecht, I'll come in and visit with you, have you draw me up a little deal of recommendations. Will try to keep me from getting myself in trouble as
Yep.
usual. But I'm more than willing to make some statements. For press, if you're credentialed press, I'm willing to break virtually every rule while you're there. Say, you know, you're credentialed with, they all know if they do something that's nefarious, that it's probably going to lead to consequences. So I'll take the lead on this committee unless you feel differently.
Nope,
It's
that's
clear
great.
that I have, and I kind
Yeah.
of felt that way before I started to do it, but I didn't want to cause stir. There has been a number of complaints, not a complaint, a number of complaints to me. So I'll deal with it going forward. I will consult with all of you on what I'm doing before I do it. It's just so I don't wander down this path that I've made a bad decision that I regret later on. So
Sounds
more than
good.
we all regret. With that, I've got one last, and it's timely because it's time on the amendments. We've been visiting back and forth staff, Senator Kinski, Chairman Kinski, Vice President Kinski, I'd kind of done it. I really think we need to head down a path of more transparency on these amendments and really try to be cognizant of staff time on how we make sure we don't really buckle our staff. That being said, I mean, we've got about 8 minutes. I'd like to have at least a rough conversation of where we go tomorrow at 5, I believe is what's been noticed for amendments. The question is, at what time do we want them to be posted publicly?
It's 5 today.
5 today.
5
5
today.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 today. And when do we want them to be numbered and posted publicly? Because they've got them. The whole point is, the staff has them. And it takes them, from their testimony, probably somewhere between 3 and 5 hours to put them together, get the last drafts of them drawn up and get them numbered. So do we want to set a time, or do we want them to still be working at 4:30 in the morning, getting ready on the ones that are coming on the
So,
fly?
Mr. President, I guess I'd have to defer to Ian. You know, we all want to see him as soon as possible, but staff, it's in their best interest to take as long as possible. I mean,
Not sure I got that. We'll listen to you. Tell us.
but I mean, posting up till we begin third reading gives a maximum amount of time, right?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kinski, right. The more time we have, the advantage to having some time is simply that you're able to deal with any conflicts in amendments and then make sure they're right. But, the deadline, the 5 o'clock deadline for submitting your amendments is really the issue. If we got a bunch of amendments at 5 o'clock, then it's more difficult to get them done and posted by 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night. If we don't have very many, that's easy to do. One of the issues, though, is that under the current rules, there is no requirement that they be approved at all until there's no deadline whatsoever. So they could potentially be approved right at the time that budget item is coming up.
Okay, I'm sorry now. So your question is, what time do we want to tell the legislators they have to finally approve the amendment? Okay, I got
Yes,
you.
sir.
So it stops them from having to move on the fly.
I got you.
The second portion of that is transparency. And I think, we've all had our feet to the fire on transparency. And I personally, and we're sitting here on a feed going out, I think it's really hard on the public when we do this with an announcement. Section 182, and there's nothing in the envelope, nothing there, and all of a sudden you go, boom. And they've never seen it, no one's done it, and some of these amendments yesterday went to the tune of $200 million. Nobody has any inkling of what's in them. They're very substantial. They pack the power of law. Everything else we do goes through committee meetings, what we're doing here, it's noticed, it's done. And all of a sudden now, we're doing something that packs the exact same deal as a bill that gets 2 hearings, 2 runs,
Right.
and there's zero transparency to the public.
Okay, you lost me when you said section 182, there's nothing there. And then you laid that, I'm trying to
Because you
follow
just
what
brought
you're
the
talking
amendment
about.
out, so depending on when you release those to the public,
Okay,
unless you're sitting there on your computer, and I believe me, there are guys that do it, when they numbered those amendments, I know Ian can tell you, because I walked in the bullpen and said, where are they at? It's time, where are you at? And he's like, well, we're still numbering, it's gonna take. I was fine with that, but I can tell you there is people on their computers waiting for, as they drop line by line, because they want to see what's coming. They want to know where, as a constituent, they fall on what someone's done.
well, that would be, the next time our rules come around, I've never understood you can drop that amendment at the last minute right up until you take the section. There's some people think there's some tactical advantage in it. I don't see the tactical advantage. I've told people on the floor, just number it as quickly as you can. But our rules currently do allow people to wait right up until the last minute to number their amendment, right? And other than
That's
just
correct.
moral suasion of asking them not to do that, I don't know what
We
our
can
other
change the rules
options
right
are.
now. We can literally sit and have a vote right now when we want them to number them, take it to the floor today. It can happen.
Mr. Chairman, the current rules, of course, only establish the 5 o'clock deadline the day before for making the request, and then no other deadline. The House has an 8 a.m. deadline or actually, I'm sorry, it's not 8 a.m. It's 2 hours
hours before,
prior
yeah.
to them coming in on the budget.
That they have to approve their amendment for number?
Correct. There's
Wow.
no approval after that point.
Holy smokes.
So my actual recommendation for now would be for us to mirror the House rules, give them the 2 hours on it. That still gives 2 hours notice. There's also some tactical in between the two bodies of being able to see 12 hours ahead, and then the other body's locked in and can't bring another one up. Let's talk about being honest about it. So my suggestion would be for us to, for right now, for this session, is to go ahead and bring to the floor that we mirror House rules. That gives us 2 hours. That at least gets 2 hours out there. It's better than where we're at.
I'd support that.
So let me make sure I'm following. Turn your request in by 5, and you have to number it by 8 AM the following morning.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kinski, correct.
The goal would be to do it as soon as you can, but no later than 8 a.m.
No later than 8.
And lean on that first part, because if you can and get the staff and get it worked out, that's great, because the sooner we have it, the sooner it can be better for transparency. But,
And what time do we kick off third
10.
reading? 10.
well, gavel in at 10.
Gavel in
What we're
at
gonna
10.
do.
But we go through our normal stuff ahead. You gotta keep in mind before we do third
So it might
reading,
be
we
2.
do- might be 2 o'clock.
Right.
Because we go through our normal order of business. We're gonna go through second reading, introductions, standard third reading, and then we go to third reading of the budget, I believe.
I think you might want the 8 AM to be kind of a solid, though. That's the challenge, is if we don't know, how does staff know if you've missed the deadline for the submission?
No, it's 8 AM, so I'm asking to follow House rules, hard 8 AM deadline.
Well, I think, is that what it says for the House? I thought you were saying that it was
2 hours before gavel.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's, yeah, it's a 2 hours
So they wanna
prior to
consider-
gaveling in. I believe.
2 hours prior to gaveling in.
I'll make
the
sure
line.
that's right.
Okay, gotcha.
So 2 hours before gavel.
2 hours before gavel in.
They-
Same
That's
rules,
it.
just mirror the House rules.
Yeah, that sounds good.
When do you like to make a motion?
So moved.
So we're gonna ask the body, we're gonna seek 2/3 concurrence on that? Okay.
Yeah.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, done.
Because we may, I mean, given what happened last night, and given what, or yesterday, given what's gonna happen tomorrow, we know. You might wanna start early. You might wanna start at 9, or, I know we have committee meetings and stuff, so.
Yeah, that's Majority Floor Leader here at Skull. Interesting enough, we're divided there. That's purview of the Majority Floor
Okay,
Leader.
well, that's true, all right.
So we're 10:01, folks, we're
Yeah.
adjourned. We'll have, Ian, can you draft that up for us so we can bring it to the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I will. Do you want to do that first thing, or do you want?
No, it can happen anytime during the day. It's just gonna be a vote, and actually later
Well-
might be better, because
Maybe right after lunch.
Sure.
these
Because
guys.
because we're gonna have to do a rule on a 5 o'clock deadline that day.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Although that's the deadline
Yeah.
right now, so it's not like we're hurting today, it's
But
9 o'clock.
it will
now.
apply for tomorrow, so I'll
Right.
have it to you by lunch.
Thank you very much.
Sure,
thanks.
It's 2/3, the way the votes go there.
Sure, right. Okay, all right, sounds good.
Yeah.
The professional audio section, say what you have.
What have you got? What's the best you've got?
I gotta do it before Saturday.
Yeah,
Have you ever dealt with them?
no.
They're decidedly shut down. They shut down
Oh, you're kidding
on
me.
sundown on Friday. They don't, the
Uh-huh.
computer, you can't place in the computer